Hello, everybody. This is Lawrence Sutton, Chris Morris, and this is Free Speech News, where we discuss two things you're not supposed to discuss: politics and religion, and where we're not politically correct, but biblically correct. How you doing, Chris?
Doing great, Lawrence. Doing great. I'm getting anxious to see the rain that we're promised that's coming in. They're saying the first of the week we could get 1 to 2 inches, and that's great news for this area because I've been looking. Lawrence County Fire and Rescue has been out all day today fighting a lot of brush fires.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll tell you what.
Shout out to the EMS.
EMS, right? And we got to have a shout out to Todd Warner for sponsoring our show.
Shout out to Todd Warner.
Todd, you got to get on the show with us, buddy. It's your show. You helped paying for this, and we haven't even had you on here yet. I want to come out at the gate. We are having numerous government agencies that are warning us about Hezbollah and Hamas with sleeper cells in America.
That is correct.
And we have talked about this over the last couple of weeks, but this was just our feeling. This is just our opinion based upon history, looking at history. But we've had the DHS, we've had the FBI, we've even had the CIA that are warning about coordinated strategic attacks are very possible. The FBI, the director of the FBI, Christopher Wray, told CBS News earlier this week that we are at a possibility of an attack. Even the DHS, the Department of Homeland Security, has our risk right now currently at yellow, which is indicating a significant risk of terrorist attack. Now, Chris, I want to tell you something. I think we've already had one on America's soil, and they're not talking about it, and that's in Los Angeles right now. Right. What do you think about that?
And what Lawrence is referring to is in Los Angeles on Interstate 10, I-10. That's the fourth largest interstate system in the United States. I think it runs, Lawrence, like 2,460 miles in length.
Right.
From the East Coast to the West Coast.
Yep.
And they are saying, homeless, we're living under the bridge and all that. But I'm going to tell you something. It takes, I don't know what it took to make the concrete pillars flake. That's amazing. How hot do you have to get it for that to happen?
I
think it was a terrorist. Call me a conspiracy theorist.
Right.
But so far,
they've kept it very quiet.
It's low key. You don't see it much on the news. It's not talked about much. But I think this is one of their many planned attacks.
Yeah. And what makes I-10 so important is Los Angeles has the largest port, especially coming in from China.
Right.
Of any port in the United States.
And another thing right there on that part of I-10, it has 300,000 travelers per day.
Per day, that's right.
Per day.
And Los Angeles came out, and your good old buddy who you probably have campaigned for, Gavin Newsom.
I thought you and him were first cousins by way of Florida.
Is that how it is?
Yeah.
He hates Florida now. So if as much as he hates Florida and DeSantis, he would hate me.
Yeah.
So
yeah, both of us.
Yes. But no, they're telling people stay home, don't travel.
Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. But don't travel. You don't need to travel. You need to stay home. I'm going to tell you something. I just look at these things right now, and it just looks awful suspicious in my eyes.
It's kind of got that smoke test. Where there's smoke, there's fire.
There's
correct?
Fire. That's correct. I would like to know. The fire was so bad, like you said, it burned concrete. It melted the steel guardrails. Melted steel guardrails. I'm going to tell you something. I have had, I've done fires before, and pretty big fires, burning brush and things like that. I've never had a fire so hot that it melted metal. And they're telling us that this fire was caused by pallets.
By pallets and storage trailers and the homeless camp. They're using all that and trying to put it in a nice box with a bow.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I hate saying this, but it's kind of like how Building 7 just magically fell down after Building 1 and 2 and the Twin Towers attack. And that building wasn't even hit.
Right.
But yet it goes down.
But they didn't talk about it either.
No, no, people have forgotten about it. But I tell you the other thing, too. I sit there and even back in 2001 when this happened and I watched those buildings go down, I'm like, I've never seen a building. It looked like a demolition how the building went down.
Right.
Because typically when a building like that falls, it doesn't fall straight down on top of itself. It falls over.
It leans out.
Yes. So, and we do know, and another thing that people forget about is that in 1995, I believe, we had a terrorist attack on Building 1, I believe, where they tried to blow it up from the bottom.
From the bottom down into the garage area.
That's right. So I just tell you, I look at this, I look at how they have kept this under wraps. And again, me and you both, we're saying this is our opinion, but we're not physicists, we're not engineers, but you build things though. You have a history
in the past
of building like Walmarts and other large, structures.
Yeah.
So does it make sense to you what you're seeing?
It doesn't. It's quite frightening that we're not given the focus or the attention. It needs to be a full-blown investigation going to see what happened. And for 1 second, I don't buy nothing about that this was started with pallets and things of this nature, because when we burn wood and things like that, that's not going to get hot enough to do the damage it did to that concrete structure.
Right.
And the steel, and talking about the guardrails and everything. There's no way that just wooden pallets or even trailers, what could have been stored in those trailers?
Right.
And they say there was nothing toxic. So they're just trying to keep everybody calm, but then again, stay at home.
Right.
They're speaking with forked tongue.
Well, that's kind of the same thing with COVID. Just stay home. You just need to stay home. But what else was interesting is that happened, Saturday night, Sunday morning. But then Monday, we had Raytheon there in Los Angeles, had a huge protest where it shut down the whole campus of Raytheon. And if people don't understand, Raytheon is a kind of like Lockheed Martin, and they do a lot of military work for our government.
Yeah, the closest one is at Redstone Arsenal.
Yeah.
So
where is that at, Redstone Arsenal?
In Huntsville.
In Huntsville, okay. So they closed down the entire campus because of pro-Palestinian, pro-Hamas protesters.
Protesters, yes.
And they were scared because of how violent that they were displaying outside of the gates of Raytheon. Same thing happened in Washington, D.C.
Last night.
Yeah.
They did this last night. I don't know if you caught up on the demonstration. They had somewhere around 150 plus unruly protesters that got kind of violent. There were 6 officers injured, and this is what I can't figure out. You got 6 police officers injured from last night.
Where was this at?
Washington, D.C.
Okay.
And I think it was right outside, if my memory serves me correct, right outside the Democrat headquarters.
So these people
and one arrest.
And one arrest. Well, I'm surprised they got arrested. So these people were protesting then at the same time that we had 300,000 Jewish people that were there protesting on Washington, D.C. yesterday. Is that correct? They came, what, later on in the day or something?
But they described this mob as violent protesters. And I'm surprised they used that word violent on these pro-Palestinians.
Well, I tell you, it's kind of interesting because I was reading an article from the Times of Israel that they actually had 300,000 people in Washington, D.C. Yesterday that were there to demonstrate their support for Israel. And I want to tell you what's amazing to me is we had good old Chucky Schumer and we had Hakeem Jeffries. And if people don't know who Hakeem Jeffries is, he is actually the minority leader for the Democratic Party for the House of Representatives.
Yes.
And both Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries got up and spoke to these 300,000 Israeli people that were there in support of Israel. And they actually were talking about that they too supported Israel. I'm just going to tell you, I was kind of surprised about that. I know this, that we have had Columbia University is being called out right now. And again, this was an article that the Times of Israel did where over 100 professors, I want people to listen to this, over 100 professors at Columbia University has called for the destruction of Israel. I want you to think about that. We have professors teaching our children that are on the wrong side of not only humanity, but in case they haven't read the Bible, in Genesis chapter 16, God told Abraham that I will bless those that bless you and I will curse those that curse you. And they're on the wrong side of humanity, and they darn sure on the wrong side of God.
The Bible, yes, and God's Word.
And God's Word. And so I'm just curious. I was really curious to see the Democratic Party actually placating to these people that are there in support of Israel. And I'm just going, I'll say when I see something good, even if it's on the other side, I'm going to call it out. I'm going to let people know.
I'm surprised, as you are, that these people, these Democrats, have come out in support of Israel.
They have,
and thankfully, we've got people with a few of them with some sense.
Well, and I brought up this story for another reason, because you're talking about later on that evening how we had protests from Hamas and the Palestinians in Washington, D.C. go bad, and we have violence. Me and you both know if there was any threat of violence at all, Chucky Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries would not have been there speaking in front of these people. And they were. They went out and spoke in front of them. And also our new speaker, Mike Johnson, came out and spoke as well, saying how he is going to make sure that the House stands up for Israel. So I just kind of wanted to point that out because we are seeing the essence of hypocrisy right now on both sides. And here's what I mean by this, Chris. We have, according to Hamas, we have 10,000 Gazanians that they said they have been killed. Now, I don't know if I believe it or I don't believe it, but I'm going to give them that number. I just want to give them that number, and I'm going to tell you why. We have college kids who frankly don't know anything. I'm sorry. You might have a very high IQ, but you do not know what's going on. You are listening to people that are poisoning your minds. We as parents are sending our children to these institutions to have their minds poisoned. But where were these people at when we have had hundreds of thousands? I want people to listen to me. We've had hundreds of thousands of Muslims killed in the last 5 to 10 years in Yemen, in Syria, Iraq, North Africa, and they were killed by other Muslims. But I don't see people protesting those people being killed, do you?
No.
Why is that? Are people that stupid?
You know, I was talking about this earlier this morning. We have dumbed down our society in America.
Yeah.
Okay? And it's being done through our public school system.
Right.
It's not at the higher education. It's at the higher level. It's at your secondary education. You know, from your elementary schools, middle schools, high schools. We have let this woke culture in and have not put the brakes on it. And all we're doing is trying to get away from history and not teach the way you should be taught. You know, now when you and I went to school, 2 plus 2 equaled 4.
Right.
2 plus 2 now equals 5 with this new woke education. I'm just using this as a hypothetical.
Yeah.
But man, they have made math so complicated that, you know, it takes a rocket scientist to sit down and figure out how you work a simple math problem.
Well,
You know.
I tell you, what we have done, and this is what I've seen, is we have taken critical thinking skills and we have thrown it out the door.
Right.
You know, we're going to teach critical race theory in school. So where is the critical race theory being taught in school? How these, unfortunately, hundreds of thousands of Muslims being killed by Muslims is okay. We're not going to say anything about that. We're not going to protest that. But yet we have Muslims that have attacked the Jewish people, and the Jewish people responded to defend themselves, and yet they are the ones that are being called racist. They're being called all kinds of things. They're saying that they're trying to have a genocide of the Gazians and the Palestinian people, where actually the only thing they're doing is the exact opposite. They're warning these people, we're about to hit this area, you need to leave. But Hamas is using these people as human shields.
Right.
And I tell you, breaking news just happened in that Israel found a cache of Hamas weapons stockpiled in the Al-Shifa hospital that they're talking
Underground,
about.
in the basement and the tunnels.
Right. And the world condemns Israel for targeting this hospital. And people are just protesting. They're going after people in the hospitals. Let me ask you something, Chris. And this even came from Al Jazeera. Okay. And Al Jazeera is a Muslim network. Okay. Guess how many people that in the hospital that Al Jazeera has reported that Israel has killed in the hospital, taking over the hospital and finding this stockpile of weapons. Take a wild guess. None. As a matter of fact, the Jews were actually bringing fuel to the hospital and water to the hospital.
To keep generators going.
Yet these people were allowing Hamas to store caches of weapons in the hospital. Now, it could be, I'm going to play devil's advocate, it could be because they're scared. But here's the thing. The last time we had elections in Gaza, Hamas is a government as well as a terrorist organization, and they had over 80% of the Gazians voted for the Hamas government. So that means 8 and 10 people agree
with Hamas.
And what they're doing. So I tell you, I think the Jews have showed extreme restraint for what they're doing. And we still have 240 people that are missing, that have been captured.
And that was the other part of that. They think some of them are in the basement or these tunnels through the hospital, that's where they're being held hostage.
Yes, and that was the other thing that I read that was amazing to me, and what these, let's call it what they are. They're tunnel rats. Okay, right. 2/3 of the cities in Gaza are underground. They're underground, Chris. And Hamas has even come out and said, okay, well, you've blown up all these buildings that the non-Hamas people live in. And Hamas is laughing, going, you haven't even touched our structures. We still have our homes and places that we live in. But yet, this is what Israel has to do in order to ferret them out. Eventually, they're going to ferret them out. But Hamas is using people as human shields. And frankly, these people are letting them. I'm sorry. These people, nobody's fighting against them.
The thing that not enough focus is put on is that Benjamin Netanyahu warned these people, get out.
Oh,
I'm going to destroy Gaza. Yeah. Get out. And he gave plenty of time, but these bleeding heart liberals, just like the Prime Minister of France, wants a ceasefire and all that. People, you need to keep your nose out of it. These other countries, U.S., you need to let Benjamin Netanyahu do what he needs to do. And what did he say? I'm going to destroy Amalek.
Yeah.
So, he's nobody to play with.
No, sir, he's not. And frankly, I can't say as I blame him because of what is happening. Now, again, war's bad. I hate war.
Mm-hmm.
But this is not something that Israel looked for. This is not something Israel
They came looking for Israel.
They came not only looking for Israel, they found Israel
to kill Jews.
That's correct. And again, just like the Republican Party has a platform, just like the Democratic Party has a platform, so does Hamas, so does Hezbollah. And their whole thing is before their Messiah can come back, which is called the Mahdi. All Jews and check out this wording, deceiving Christians have either to be killed or they have to be converted for their Messiah to come back. So I don't know. I look at it and I see our government. Our government has, I tell you what's interesting, Chris, is our government is leaving people that are conservative alone right now. I don't know if you've noticed this, but I was looking on a website called defense.gov. And you know how our government is saying that back after Biden was elected, the people that were the most dangerous to our country were Republicans or conservative Christian people, were the terrorists of this country? Well, it's kind of funny. Defense.gov now states that our government is worried about China, North Korea, Iran, and other Islamic groups. As a matter of fact, they did an article with a General Glenn D. Van Herk, and he's the commander of the U.S. Northern Command. And he is telling us that they are worried not only about cyber attacks to our infrastructures, but they are also worried about domestic threats to people and buildings in America.
In the U.S., that's correct.
In the U.S. And they feel like that this is the people that are most dangerous. Now, Chris, I'm going to tell you something. 3 months ago, if you had looked on defense.gov, it listed
Christian conservatives
as the people that are the most
domestic terrorist threat.
That's correct. So I found that kind of funny that they are lumping us in with terrorists, calling, if you believe in Jesus Christ, if you are a conservative, if you love this country, if you salute the flag,
if you're a Donald Trump supporter,
if you are supporting your law enforcement,
your church,
if you support the blue, you are looked upon as a domestic terrorist. And I'm going to tell you something. I hope our government is waking up and seeing that people that are patriotic to their country are not the ones that are the threat. I tell you, the ones that are the threat are Democrats that hate this country, the people that will refuse to salute the flag. Those are people that are dangerous to this country, people that will get out there and scream and holler about my body, my choice for me to kill a child that is in a woman's body and rip it out. And those aren't terrorists. So, I don't know. I'm looking at all these. I tell you, I'm really worried. And I could be worried for nothing. But I'm really worried for our young people. And if our government keeps poking its nose in other people's business, we're going to be on the war front, not one, not two, but three. We are staring World War III right in the face.
It's like a big fire hose right now.
It really is. And something is coming out every day that is inching it forward closer and closer. Now, I'm going to tell you something. Mine and your lifetime, we have never been as close to World War III in our entire lifetime as we are right now.
At this moment.
In time.
You know, while you're talking about this and everything pops in your mind, I know our listeners out there, it will theirs too. But we, and this, I say we, let me back up. This so-called administration at our Capitol in D.C., our house, that they're trying to turn the White House into the outhouse, okay? And they've done a real good job of it. They have let these borders wide open. And every one of Joe Biden's cabinet members should be held accountable. I call them treasonous.
Oh,
they're treasonous.
They are.
They have let this happen
on purpose.
They've let these about 9,800 a day crossing that border.
Since the Bible administration has happened, since the Biden administration has come about, there's been 10 million people that that have crossed this border illegally. And I'm going to take it even a step further. I'm glad you brought this up because I actually had notes on this if we had time. But John Kirby, let me tell you who John Kirby is. John Kirby is the NSC coordinator for strategic communications. He's kind of like the boss of the press secretary. He handles things that deal with national security instead of the press secretary, okay? His name's John Kirby. And he was asked a question by Peter Ducey with Fox News about what all is coming across the border and are they following it and how many have come across the border are terrorists. And John Kirby says, we do not know who all has come across our border. He says, but don't worry, we're tracking them. So
Yeah, boy.
I want you to understand. I want you to think about that word salad, and you can go look at this on YouTube.
Wait a minute, it ain't a word salad; it's a tossed word salad.
I don't know what it is, but
He doesn't either.
We do not know who has come across the border, but don't worry, we are tracking them. I want you to think about what this man says, and people think that we're that stupid. So, we have cartels that are waging war across the border with us. Human trafficking.
Drug
fentanyl
trafficking.
Coming out the Yahoo. And Mexico now, they are starting to find that the cartels are bringing explosives. They're finding those. We're also finding out, I'm going to tell you something. You remember how we had Fast and Furious under the Obama administration?
Right.
Well, just started breaking over the last couple of days. The Biden administration has been caught trying to send guns over into Mexico. Why? Why would we arm the cartels? And what will be done about it? Nothing. Not a damn thing is going to be done about it. It's almost like, well, yeah, we're doing it. What are you going to do? Nothing.
Well, that's the way this whole administration has acted. And it didn't just start with Biden's administration.
No.
This also went on during the Obama administration. They thought they were exalted rulers.
Yeah.
And they could do whatever. They didn't carry things before Congress. Obama, you're as guilty as sin too. You're a piece of crap as well. And in my mind, you're just as big a treasonous as Joe Biden. But he let things go on. But here's where I am at a crossroads and ready for a meltdown. Our Republicans that are up there in the House and Senate back then and right now, they need to be pulling up their big boy and big girl britches and standing up for the oath that they swore to do and to protect this country. They need to get up off their lazy asses and get it done. And that's how I feel.
Right.
And if I make any of them mad, so be it. It is a crying shame that these things happen and we don't call these people out. I could not stand Nancy Pelosi when she was Speaker of the House. And she run that thing like a renegade. It was rogue. It didn't matter. She'd turn your mic off. She treated Republicans like dirt. We tried to be the nice people and be nice to them, but sometimes you got to roll up your shirt sleeves and get down in the ditches with them. And I hate to say that because I watched a fellow Republican the other day take on a union steward, and he just stood up and he's had enough.
I'm going to tell you what's funny about that. I was telling my family yesterday that's Senator Mullen from Oklahoma. Okay. On my mom's side, one side of my mom's family is from Oklahoma.
Oh Lord.
And my great grandmother's maiden name is Mullen. So I'm like, I wonder, as fiery as he is, I'm sitting
Is there a connection?
Is there a connection somewhere? When I was watching that. But I'm going to tell you what was funny about that. It shows what will happen when you stand up. Because I was actually watching that exchange. And if everybody don't understand what's going on, we have the union boss with UPS. And right now his name escapes me. I think it's Sean Baker. I think that was his name.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, over the course of the summer, he has called out Senator Mullen numerous times saying what a piece of crap he is, on Twitter and everything. And Senator Mullen has 6 kids. And he's calling him out publicly and trying to shame the man. So when they were there in front yesterday, Senator Mullen called him on the carpet. And you know what was funny about that? Senator Mullen's like, you want to go? He goes, let's go. He goes and gets up. He's about to take off his suit coat. He's taking off his wedding ring because he said he didn't want to bust up his hand. And Bernie Sanders is telling him to sit down. And then that guy's still just sitting there, just running his mouth to him. And he just looked at him. I said, you know what? I tell you what, why don't me and you get in the ring? You told me that you wanted me anywhere, anytime.
Here I am.
Here I am, big boy. And he says, what did you mean by that? You wanted me anywhere, anytime. And that guy, swear to God, you can go watch this, everybody. He gets on there and he goes, I just want to have a cup of coffee. What a punk.
What a coward.
What a punk.
Mm-hmm.
He got called out, and I'm sorry, but this is what it takes. It takes men that are men to call out these weak individuals that are bullies. Now, Chris, me and you both know when we were growing up, my dad always told me, for the most part, a bully is a coward. There's 1 out of 10 that when you call them on the carpet, that will still fight. Mm-hmm. But 9 out of 10 will run with their tails between their legs.
Back down.
And they will back down. And that's what happened yesterday. And I was embarrassed for the man. I mean, I was straight up embarrassed because if I had said the things that this guy was saying, and about Mullen, and he was even going after him in this meeting, even, poking the bear. He's poking the bear, saying, come on, what are you going to do? I'll get up, I'll fight. And when he got called, you should have seen when Senator Mullen stood up and started taking off his jacket, the camera went to his face, and you should have seen his face. His face was like, oh, crap. This is about to happen. And
this is real time.
This is real time. So I saw that, and I'm glad you brought that up, because here's the thing, and this is what's happening in our country. 90% of the people that we're dealing with on the Democratic side, on these protester sides, on Antifa, on BLM, these are all weak-minded bullies, is all they are. It just takes a man that will stand up to them and understand this. 1 out of 10, you're going to have to fight. 9 out of 10 are going to back down and they're going to run. But you got to be prepared for that 1 out of 10.
And what got me is there's Bernie Sanders, a commie.
Yes.
Pure communist.
Yes.
He ain't a socialist. He's a communist.
One and the same. I'm sorry, Chris. I mean, a socialist a socialist, okay? A socialist is a weak communist. And what I mean by weak communist, a socialist has the same beliefs that a communist does. They're just not willing to do the killing that the communists are willing to do.
And of course, he called down Senator Mullen.
Yes.
And was letting this other guy run his mouth.
He was.
And that's what gets me.
But
let me carry this a step further. We talked about it as we were coming into the studio. And here, the Department of Justice. Biden's had all these documents for years, even back to when he was a senator, then VP.
He wasn't even president.
And he had these classified documents, and there's going to be no charges from the DOJ.
Well, what's happening to President Trump down in Florida with Mar-a-Lago and everything?
Right the opposite. So
and he's the president.
Don't you think for 1 second, people that's listening, that this DOJ is not weaponized against us, the conservatives?
It is rules for thee, but not for me.
It's as plain as the nose is on my face. So here's what we're into. We got a DOJ, and like I said some time ago, I told Senator Blackburn in a meeting in Giles County, The best way to clean up the national deficit is wipe out every department in Washington that starts with 3 alpha characters.
You know, it's kind of funny. I was mentioning it to my family the other day, where typically most of the alphabet agencies cost the American people over $35 billion per agency a year. $35 billion with a B. These people ain't doing anything except taking their departments as a bureaucrat. They're not even elected.
Right.
And they are creating, they're the true domestic terrorists.
Amen.
They're the true domestic terrorists.
Come on, preach it.
They are. I mean, and I'm tired of it. I'm tired of seeing it. And I have this prediction. Is that eventually we have enough people that they will back them in the corner and they will not take it anymore.
It's like kicking that dog.
That's correct.
Back him up in the corner and keep kicking him. He's going to bite.
So here's the thing, and this is what I want the Christians that are listening to this to think about. Everybody talks about in being a Christian that the meek shall inherit the earth. You've heard this. I mean, we've all have heard this, the word meek. But the word meek in the New Testament was written in Greek, not English. English wasn't even around when the New Testament was written.
Correct.
Okay. The word meek in the Greek language actually means knowing when or how to bridle a horse or knowing when to unsheath the sword.
The sword, that's correct.
And there's going to come a time that the meek shall inherit the earth. And I'm going to tell you something. Our Lord and Savior was meek. He was meek. He wasn't mild. I mean, you don't go into the temple with a whip and you whip all these people and you turn over all these tables and you kick out all of these people being a mild man.
Right.
But Jesus was meek. And here's the other thing, people hear this story and they go, oh, well, yeah, he did it. He did it twice. If you read the Bible, it was 2 different incidents that Jesus did this. So I want everybody to understand, we can be meek, but it doesn't mean that you necessarily have to be mild, and it doesn't necessarily mean you have to take tyranny. And what we're dealing with is tyranny. And people, listen to me. You have got to take back your country. And we have to do it one area at a time. We're not going to go, I can't see how, that we're going to go over and take over Washington, D.C. But you know what? We can help make the area that we live in a better place. And that, to me, Chris, is important. Let's bring up some good news. Are you ready for some good news, Chris? All we've been talking about is bad news. Let's talk about some good news.
Yes, sir.
What about the fact that the pistol brace ban has been overturned by the Fifth Circuit Court? Completely overturned. Told the ATF to go pound sand,
brother.
You cannot make a rule. You cannot go against the Second Amendment. I'm going to tell you something. With the Bruin decision, if the Democrats keep pushing, listen to me, Democrats, you need to hear me on this.
Turn your radio up.
You keep pushing this on our Second Amendment, when we have all these terrorists let loose in our country, when we see what has happened in the 20th century where 200 million people were killed once we had gun registration and guns were taken by the communists. And make no mistake, I view most Democrats as communists. Okay? I'm sorry. That's how I view them. You're going to find a lot of your rules and laws that people are following right now are going to be challenged in court, and they're going to get struck down, Chris. They are going to get struck down. And I'm going to tell you something. We're not going to have very many gun laws because based upon Bruin, we need to go back to how the Second Amendment was. And you know what the Second Amendment was really about, Chris? They say, oh, well, you know, they had only muskets back then for the Second Amendment. Well, they didn't say muskets, did they?
No, it does not say, it does not specify a specific type weapon talking about a gun, whether it's a pistol or they had pistol muskets too.
Yes.
But long rifle muskets, they wrote it, it does not mention anything about a musket.
It doesn't mention anything. You know what it does mention? It mentions that whatever weapons are there, the American citizen can have the same weapons as the government can have. That's really what it's about. And we don't even have that. You know, we don't have fully automatic weapons. I don't see civilians having tanks or a Black Hawk
155 howitzer.
Yeah, or Black Hawk helicopter or 20 Mike. I would like to shoot a 20 Mike. I think a 20 Mike would be pretty fun to shoot. But we don't even have that. But the Second Amendment, really and truly, has nothing to do with your ability to even defend yourself. It doesn't have anything with your ability to hunt. It is based upon to protect yourself from tyranny, foreign or domestic, in any ways or means possible. That's what it's there for. And anybody that says it differently, and this is where I've kind of gone off the rails with like the NRA and some of these other people, you know, when they talk about AR-15s, you know, AR-15 does not stand for assault rifle. It stands for Armalite rifle. Okay, period, end of story. But they'll say, oh, well, the AR-15, it's a hunting rifle. Okay, yeah, I mean, we use it for a sporting rifle, for hunting, for target shooting. I want to tell you something. I'm not taking an AR-15 and hunting with, okay, because it is a bullet, typically 52 grain bullet is the size of it. It is not that much bigger than a 22 bullet. I'm not using it for hunting. If I'm going to use something for hunting, I've got to have a 3 in front of it. Whether it's a 308, a 30-06, 357, you know, but not a glorified 22. People, you got to understand, an AR-15 round, the 223 round, is a glorified 22 with more powder behind it that was actually designed not to kill. Now, don't get me wrong, it'll kill.
It'll kill you.
Okay, but it was designed to use in the Vietnam War to take out 3 people at one time, not 1. And here's what I mean by that. You got shot in World War I, World War II with a 30-06, and that's what the 1903 A3s and the M1 Garans were. They shot a 30-06. You got shot with a 30-06, brother, you're dead. You're done. Bury
End of
you.
story.
End of story, bury you. Okay? The 223 round, though, is designed not to kill. It was designed to maim. Because what the government saw is when people did get glanced or nicked by a 30-06, they had 2 other people that were dragging them back. So it actually took 3 people off the battlefield for an injury and not just 1 when they were killed and 2 more keep fighting. Now you got 3 people that are no longer fighting. Go look it up. Don't take my word for it. Go look this up. You can find this information. That's what the round was designed for.
I want to touch on one other thing that I think is very important, and it's not off topic by no means. This gets into this COVID. I just got some breaking news that came from a research called Global Research. Do you know in the past month, throughout the United States, 2 of the children are right here in Tennessee. One over in Greenville, Tennessee, one in Memphis. We've had 11 children in the past month, ages 9 to 19, that's had cardiac arrest and died. at school. And 2 more, which would move it up to 13, move the needle up to 13 at their home.
So we got to be very careful what we say
Yes.
here, because we have already been banned one time. And the last one we did, I don't know if you notice it, and people, if you're listening to us on the radio, go to YouTube. But YouTube actually put a censor on us.
Right.
So, where it says fact check. Okay. Yes. And unlike them, please fact check me. But they send out a little thing on the fact check, and it was having to do with the election. We must have said something about the election that YouTube didn't like. But you had that fact check about, you had to point, you click on it and it told you about the election.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
but I think this information, and they're tying it into the COVID shot and everything. So I haven't got to read this. This just came across breaking news, and I think it needs to get out there. And then what I got to looking at, 2 of the 11 children that died at school were right here in our great state.
Well, and that's a shame. And my heart goes out to these families. Mm-hmm. And all I got to do is tell you this.
Believe in God.
Absolutely. You got to believe in God, but go do your own research, people. Look and think and use what is your cognitive thinking, critical thinking skills.
What the good Lord give you.
What the good Lord give you. That's right. And pray about it.
He give every one of us that equally.
That's correct.
So, like we always say, this is the fastest hour that you can ever spend is just getting behind this mic. Because, folks, we got about 4 minutes left. Well, really 3. So it goes by so quick. And I want to say, before we forget it, shout out to Todd Warner. We greatly appreciate you helping us with this program.
Yep.
And look forward to having you on pretty soon. He was going to try to come on this week. And there's been some different meetings already being scheduled. I know that Kip is on his way back from Nashville right now. He's in Malfunction Junction. He was talking about how terrible the traffic is in Nashville.
Right. I tell you what, I also heard some other good news, too, is that we had a restaurant that closed down back a while ago, Steaders. But guess what?
It reopened yesterday.
Steaders reopened yesterday.
At 3.
Yes. And they are going to be open, from my understanding, from like 3 to 8:30. And then they're going to be open 5 days a week. It's going to be open Wednesday through Sunday, and they're taking off Monday and Tuesday. So I really like seeing that.
That's positive news.
It's positive news. They took a lot of heat from the local people how they closed down
abruptly. Yeah,
abruptly. But they closed down abruptly because the banks made them, from my understanding. Okay. And they went in, and I really appreciate Jared Menz and Mike Stetter who run Stetters. And they do a lot of good things in our community, and we need to support them. And I want to support them, just like we always talk about strikers,
Yeah.
And because strikers, support Kip Capley's show.
Right.
And we eat there too. But, I used to eat at Stetters as well.
I've ate at both. And I will say this about both of the restaurants. I remember having a thing for Manny Sethi. Mike Stetter had put that on.
Yeah.
For Manny, because I worked on Manny's team and for U.S. Senator back when he primaried Bill Haggerty.
Right.
And, of course, when Manny lost the primary, I jumped on Bill Haggerty's team. That's what you're supposed to do as a conservative. But I will tell you, they have great food, great service. The times I've ate there, I haven't left with a bad meal or a bad taste in my mouth for anything there.
Right.
So I'm glad they're back open. Congratulations, guys.
Yeah, thank you for what you do for our community.
We're down to our last 30 seconds.
Last 30 seconds. So here we go. Thank you, Chris, for all you do and coming in and helping with this. Thank you to all of our loyal listeners. and we really appreciate your feedback. God bless our state. God bless our listeners, and God bless the United States. Everybody have a great day.
Until next week.
Until next week.